Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the course of Mobile Application and Development, CS417. It's lecture number 14, and today we will discuss about intents in more detail. So here is the agenda for today's discussion. A small recap about intents, implicit intent overview, and then we will see how we send an implicit intent from one activity to another activity, and how one activity receives an implicit intent. These PowerPoint slides has been taken for teaching and learning purposes under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. These PowerPoint slides has been prepared by Android developers, and it's a training by Google. And this is the link given. You can also check this link for more tutorials about Android application development. So what is an intent? An intent is basically a description of an operation to be performed. In the simplest form, we can call or understand intent as it is a description of an operation. If you want to perform some operation, if you want to call some operation in an activity, so that operation is called an intent. And the second bullet is it is a messaging object. It is obviously a messaging object and is used to request an action from another app component via the Android system. So it is a message object. This means that one activity passes messages from to another activity with the help of an intent. And how it does this, we can see this diagram and try to understand that this is the originator, this is a component, this is an app component, and that app component wants to communicate with this app component. So these two components wants to communicate with each other. So how this component, which is called originator, communicate with this another app component. So it does this with the help of an intent. You can see that the one app component communicates with another app component with the help of an intent. And here is an Android system which acts as a middleware. This Android system will act as a middleware, middleman or middleware. We can call it a middleman or a middle layer. Okay, it acts as a middleman with the help of which this communication is possible. So this Android system communicates with this app component, and this Android system will act as a middleware or a middleman or an agent. We call this is an agent. With the help of an agent, the communication between these two app components are possible. So what can intent do? An intent can be used to start an activity. So this is the first step. With the help of an intent, we can start an activity. After starting an activity, the application will move into different states. And the other operation of an intent is start a service, a background service. We can start a background service with the help of an intent. And the third one is deliver a broadcast. We have already studied briefly what is a service and what is a broadcast. Broadcast is a message, and these messages are from the Android system or from one activity to another activity. So we can use an intent to start an activity, to start a service, and then we can also use intents for delivering a broadcast. Services and broadcast, we will see these two concepts later on in more detail. So there are two types of intents. One is called explicit intent and the other one is called implicit intent. So implicit intent is by default and explicit intent is not by default. This means that explicit intents needs proper rules and proper mechanisms with the help of which we call them, and implicit intent is not so much rigid as compared to explicit intents. Explicit intents are used to start an activity of a specific class. If you want to start activity of a specific class, then we can use an explicit intent. And what is an implicit intent? It is the responsibility of the system to find an activity class with a registered handler that can handle this request. So in that case, we are pointing some class explicitly by mentioning its name or using its object. But on the other hand, implicit intent, it is not the responsibility of the intent, it is the responsibility of the system to find an activity class. So this is the key point, that in implicit intent, the responsibility is on the system, Android runtime system, to find an activity class with a registered handler that can handle this request. So in that case, we will register some handlers, and those handlers are called evil handlers. And those handlers are registered in a listener with the help of a listener. And in that way, the Android runtime system will find the accurate handler that handle this request. So now let's see what is an implicit intent in more detail. So what you do with an implicit intent, what are the functionalities with the help of which we can use implicit intents? Implicit intents starts an activity in another app by describing an action you intend to perform, such as share an article, view a map, or take a picture. So these are called actions. There are a couple of more actions. Here we are mentioning only 3 actions. But there are many actions. But what the role of intent over here is that the role of intent is to perform an action, and it does this with the help of an activity. So specify an action and optionally provide data with which to perform the action, and do not specify the target activity class, just the intended action. So that's why we called it an implicit intent, because we do not specify the target activity class. We are just mentioning the intended action, and that intended action is registered in an event listener, and it is the responsibility of the event listener to call that specific event or an action. So what system does with implicit intent? Android runtime system matches the implicit intent request with registered intent handlers. So this is a way to deal with implicit intents. Implicit intents call actions with the help of intent handlers, and those intent handlers are registered themselves with the help of an event listeners. So if there are multiple matches, an app chooser will open to let the user decide, like in Windows, when you are working or you want to open some file and that application is not installed in your Windows operating system. In that case, an app chooser will open, and you will decide what to do with that file. Similar is the case in Android operating system. So how does implicit intent work? The Android runtime keeps a list of registered apps that is basically for registration in a database. How many apps are registered in an Android runtime? It is the responsibility of an Android runtime to list, to keep, or to store registered apps in its memory, whether it is a database or in runtime memory. Apps have to be registered via Android manifest file. You can use, or you will use, this Android manifest file where all information regarding your application is stored, and the Android runtime receives the request and looks for the matches. So where the request goes to the Android runtime ART, and then ART looks for the matches, for the possible matches for the apps. So Android runtime uses intent filters for matching. This is the mechanism how it matches the registered apps. It uses intent filters for matching. So if more than one match is found, it shows a list of possible matches and lets the user choose one. Similar is the case in Windows operating system, and similar is the case in Android operating system. So Android runtime starts a requested activity. Okay, so this is how implicit intent work. The Android runtime keeps a list of registered apps, and apps are registered in Android manifest file. Input Android runtime receives the request and looks for matches, and Android runtime uses intent filters for that, for this matching, and so on. So you have seen this screen multiple times in your Windows operating system when you want to open a file and that application is not installed in your operating system. In that sense, the app chooser, this is called an app chooser. It will open and from here you can choose different applications like Chrome browser and so on, and it is a responsibility of the user to choose an app to interact with. So what is app chooser? This is called app chooser. When the Android runtime finds multiple registered activities that can handle an implicit intent, it displays an app chooser to allow the user to select the handler. So this is how the system behaves with implicit intents. It does all this with the help of an app chooser. So how we send an implicit intent from one activity to another activity. So how can we send an implicit intent? Here is a code. First, we will create an intent for an action. This is an intent class, and this is an object which is called an intent. And we are creating a new object, and we are passing some arguments, and that argument is called an action. Okay, this is an action which is going to be passed in an intent. This is an action which is going to be passed over here. So we call this is a constant. We always use constants with the help of the super class, so you can judge that this intent and this intent are similar to each other. Okay, these two classes are similar to each other, and we are creating over here a new object, and that object is of type intent. And what is argument? Argument is the action underscore call underscore button. So you can judge from this command that we are registering an intent with the help of an action. The action is the argument to the intent. So when user has pressed the call button, start activity that can make a call, no data is passed in or returned, because when we are calling, we are not passing data to the caller. Simple, we are waiting for the caller so that he or she can receive the call. So this is the main syntax of the intent, and the intent object takes the action. So how it starts the activity? First of all, we will check if intent.resolve activity get package manager is not equal to null. Then we will start an activity, and in that case, you see that we have seen this in our previous lecture. This is a callback, and to that call back or event handler, we are passing an intent object. Okay, and that intent object what that intent object does, it is passing an action button. So avoid exceptions and crashes. Before starting an implicit activity, use the package manager to check that there is a package with an activity that matches the given criteria. For this reason, we are checking that is not equal to null. Why we are using this statement over here? The reason of this statement is over here. We use the package manager to check that there is a package with an activity that matches the given criteria. Otherwise, exception will occur and your application will crashes. How we send an implicit intent with the data URI? First, we will create an intent for action. We have seen this before. Intent class, intent object, an intent action dial. So you can see that here we are again performing an action in an intent. We are mentioning an action, and to specify an action, intent class are different actions: call and dial, etc., etc. So this is an action. Try to remember these actions so that you can use them in your code. And first we create an intent with an action, and then we provide data as a URI. So this is an object, intent object, same intent object. Come over here, and after that we call another method of this intent class or intent with the help of this object member data functions, that is called set data. And in set data we are passing some number which the user has dialed from the dialer. So this is the way or syntax with the help of which the Android system calls a specific number. URI.parse this is the key, and this is the value, this is the number. So this is the key, we called it a key, and this is a value. So remember this point, that the intent set data function takes a URI or a number in a key value pair. So after that we start an activity, and before starting an activity we check the package manager whether it is null or not, so that our application will not crash or will not throw any exception. We will check this, and if it is not null, this means there is an activity, and then we are going to start an activity. And in that case, what is the activity? Any idea? In that case, what is the activity? Activity is calling this number. Calling this number. This is a activity over here. So let's move on. Providing the data as URI. What is the syntax of providing the data as URI? Creating URL from a string using URI.parse string URI. Okay. So this is a class, and this is a method which parse the input arguments, and the input argument is a string. So this is the first method, URI.parse a telephone colon key value pair, and that URI.parse is the second method, geo, and this is the second key value pair, and this is a query string. Okay, this is a query string. And the third one is URI.parse. We can include a complete URL. So these are all different methods you can use in an intent to provide data from one activity to another activity. You can also check this link, URI documentation. This is available in slides. You can also check this link and see what other overloaded methods are available over here. So these are all overloaded methods of this URI.parse method. So go to this link and see what other options are available for URI.parse. So let's move on and see some more examples of intents. How we show a web page with the help of an intent. First of all, we create a URI object. This is the class, and this is an object, and this is also a class because this is a static method. For that's reason we are accessing that method with the help of the class, and we are giving a link over here. It is an object, and after that we will create an intent object, intent, a new intent, and what the constant argument for this action. This is called an action for an intent. Okay. So the action is intent.action view. We want to view some web page or a Google search engine, so we are passing this intent.action view, and the second argument is the URI. Okay, and then start activity.it. We are passing an intent object to the activity. So any activity will take an intent object. Every activity takes an intent object. This is the example number 1, how to show a page, and this is example number 2, how to dial a number. First we will create a URI object, and then we will use intent, and we action dial, and then URI. Look at these constants, intent constants. First one is action underscore view, and the second one is action underscore dial. So remember these actions so that you can use them in your code. This is the example number 2. How we send an implicit intent with extras, extra information, extra data, extra information. So create an intent for an action. This is the same line you have seen multiple times, and this is the constant of action underscore web underscore search, and put extras string. We are creating a string object over here, and this is the input control in your application, which is called edit text. Okay, and this is the method get text dot to string. We converted text to string because maybe there are some numbers, integer numbers over there, so that we can avoid exceptions or crashes. So that's the reason we use to convert them to string method, and then we put these query in, put extras search manager dot query. This is a component in Android which takes query as an argument and performs searches. Its first argument is we are mentioning the search component, and this one is the query, which is this one. So try to remember the exact flow of the code, how we put commands in intent and use them accordingly. And after that, the same statement, intent dot resolve activity dot get package manager is not equal to null. This statement is used because we want to avoid exceptions or application crashes. Additional information about the kind of component to handle the intent. We can use these constants like category underscore openable, only allow URIs of files that are openable. Okay, if you want to open some files, so you should mention this in the intent. Category openable, category underscore openable. This means this is an indicator to the intent that the file we are mentioning in the URI is openable. And the second part is category underscore browsable, only an activity that can start a web browser to display data referenced by the URI. This is also an indicator to the app that the activity which is going to be open will start a web browser to data referenced by the URI. Sending an implicit intent with type and category. So first of all, we create an intent object, and this is an action which is called intent action create document. This is an indicator to the intent that we are going to create a document, a file. Set memory type and category for additional information, like let's suppose we are going to create a PDF document. So in that case, we always set memory type and its category. So how can we do that? We call this intent object over here, and with the help of this method set type, this is the set memory type. This is called PDF, and intent.add category, intent.category underscore openable. This means that this file is openable. When we create this, that file is openable. So we need to mention that action also in a specific add category method. Similarly, sending an implicit intent with type and category, same statement will come over here. Intent dot resolve activity get package manager is not equal to null, and start, this is different, start activity for result my intent dot activity underscore request dot create underscore file. This means that my activity is going for result, and what does this result means that the first operation is the file will be created, and the second operation is the file will be opened. and the process return content URI in an on activity result method or a callback. So common actions for an implicit intent are common actions include action set alarm underscore action underscore is not visible over here because this is underlined. So we assume that underscore will appear over here. Action underscore set underscore alarm. These are common actions that we can send with implicit intents. Action underscore image underscore capture, and similarly we can see that action underscore create underscore document, and the fourth one is action underscore send to. So try to see some common actions for an implicit intent by your own. There are so many actions available in an intent. Apps that handle common actions. Common actions are usually handled by installed apps, both system apps and other apps. What are those apps? Alarm clocks and calendars and camera, contacts. These are all apps. Uh, email, file storage. These are all apps that are installed by default. Music and video, notes, phone search, settings, and web browsing, etc., etc. We can send intents to these apps as well by specifying different actions, and that actions are common actions. You can see that list of common actions for an implicit intent and list of all available actions. Go to these links by your own and see what other actions are available in an intent, so that you can use them and make your application more scalable and versatile. So this is all the way that how we send an implicit intent. Now move on and see how we receive an implicit intent. First we will register our app to receive an intent, and for that we will use Android manifest file. We will use this file for how we send intents from one application or from one activity to another activity. Similarly, we can use this file for registering purposes. Filter announces ability of activity to accept an implicit intent, and filter puts conditions on the intent that the activity accepts. So it's possible that you can put on some filters or conditions on the activity, how it accepts an implicit intent. So this is the code of Android manifest file, XML file. Here you can see that the activity name is activity is the tag name, and this is the key, and this is the value. Okay, and this activity name is shared activity, and here you can see that we are registering an intent over here. Intent filter. This is a specific rule, or we call it as a conditions, specific conditions. Action Android name Android.intent.action.send. We are registering that the intent is going to send some type of data or some type of actions from one activity to another activity. Similarly, there is a category filter which states that this is a default category, and the third one is data, mimi type text plain. This means that our data is transferred in text plain format. So these are the intent filters, specific rules with the help of which we can send data. So what are intent filters? Intent filters are is a combination of actions with category. What is an action? Match one or more action constants. So let's suppose this is Android or intent.action.view. This means that we are going to view some file, some information matches any intent with action view, and that is another action which is send. This part is the same, only the last part is different. It is matchable with this, and this is matchable with this action. Okay, so that's why we called this intent as implicit intent, because it matches actions with these keywords. And what is the category? Additional information of list of categories. Let's suppose this is a category dot browsable. This means the file is browsable. This part is the same. This part and this part is the same. Only the last word is different. This means that can be started by web browser, and this means the launcher show activity as a launcher icon. It will appear as an icon. So what is the data in intent filters? Filter on data, URIs, memory types, etc. Android scheme, HTTPS. This means that we are accessing some file or some web page with the help of this protocol, HTTPS protocol. And the second one is host developer.android.com, only accept an intent from a specified host. If you want to accept intent from a specific host, then we do this in XML file, Android manifest file like this. And this is a MIME type which states that the document is going to be transferred is in text or plain format. So it limits acceptable types of documents. An activity can have multiple filters. What are those filters? This is the name of the activity. This is intent filter number 1. It is closed over here. This is one filter and this is second filter. So remember this, that an activity has multiple filters. Here in this example there are 2 filters. An activity can have several filters. So remember this point, that activity has multiple filters. And a filter can have multiple actions and data as well. So this part is the same. You can see that this is the same part, this is the same part, and this is the same, and this one is also the same, only the next argument is different. Here you can see that this is send, this is send multiple files, this is single, this is for single file, and this is for multiple files, or for this is the default category, and this is for the image, and this is for the video. Okay, so try to learn these rules by yourself and see what other options are available. You can learn more by going on these links, how we create intent. The whole class documentation is available over here. URI documentation is visible over here. List of common apps that respond to implicit intents, because not every app is eligible to respond to implicit intents. There are specific apps that respond to the implicit intents. So you can use this link and see what those apps are. A list of available actions. This is very, very important. Implicit intents or explicit intents always has actions, or always has categories, and always has filters. So intents are the combination of is a composition of actions, categories, and filters. So without these actions, categories, and filters, these are the main building blocks of an intent. Okay, categories and filters. So when you use intents, implicit intents or explicit intents, you always specify actions, you always specify category, and you always include some rules, some conditions, and those conditions are called intent filters. So this is all about intents. If you have any questions regarding today's lecture, you can email me to my official email and I will respond you accordingly. So till your next lecture, stay blessed and stay motivated, and Allah Hafiz.